Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Eric Meier, partner and engagement officer with AIM, Agape International Missions, and today was a little bit different topic, Anthony.
Yeah, little different episode today.
Yeah, today we actually interviewed Eric about his organization, and also we talk about child and sex trafficking. So it's not going to be our typical topic, but it's something that's kind of been on our hearts for a while, and we have partnered with AIM over the last year or so, and so we wanted to share that with you guys, and hopefully there might be an opportunity for you guys to help support this organization in some way as well.
Now, with one of the many things that they do, what he's going to talk about, they rescue the women, but then they give them jobs, and they give them and teach them skills. And that's where we get these fine T-shirts, and I will say that they are fine T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And I hats off to Cameron. You've been the lead on this, and you're the one who brought this to our attention, and you've been coordinating everything. And when he mentioned the shirts, and you told me it's made in Cambodia, I'm thinking quality wise, it's going to be but if we're going to put our name on the shirt, I mean, it's got to be a certain level of quality. And as you know, your high standards for hair and fashion, but these are good shirts. And what stood out, what I like about what they do is it's one thing to help these women get out of that environment, but we also got to make sure that they have abilities and skills so they don't go back. It's kind of that, difference, do you give a hand up or a hand out? And I feel like these guys are doing both. So it's a really good organization, and we're happy to support it. Cam, what were some of your takeaways from today?
Man, I loved it. And like Anthony had mentioned, I got introduced to these guys. They came and spoke at our church, our local church here in Las Vegas, and they kind of shared what they were doing. Our church had partnered with them, and man, it was something that we could get behind and kind of support. And so I was kind of all in when I first heard about these guys and just talked to them for a little bit, try to figure out some ways that we could kind of work together. But, man, the biggest takeaway I had was kind of to piggyback off what you just said is, man, the success rate. The success rate on rescuing women and then also educating them and getting them to an employment facility, and so that they never have to return to kind of that lifestyle. That was big, right? I mean, however dark and scary that lifestyle was before, essentially no one's ever gone back. And so that's just a great statistic for me, and I look forward to kind of supporting these guys in the future.
Yeah.
Well,
what about these shirts we got?
Now, these shirts, these are, we've got a bunch of them. We've got these shirts that are going out to clients right now, but if somebody's listening and somebody wants to purchase one, we don't have anything quite set up, so feel free to send us an email and with your mailing address and your shirt size. And right now we're going to be charging $20, so we can kind of coordinate that. That's actually below cost for us, so it's not kind of a revenue generating piece to our business. We just want to help promote these guys and get some shirts out there. But here in the next 30 days or so, we will have kind of a merchandise site where somebody can go in there and log in and purchase it online and have it automated. So.
And when we have that, we're going to add that to the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy the episode.
Take care.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast, where we teach clients how to build wealth and create passive income without the risk of Wall Street.
Eric, hey man, we are excited to have you here today and introduce not only you, but also the organization that you're with to our listeners, and a little bit of the story behind the shirts that we wear during these episodes. And so we look forward to kind of highlighting you today. But hey man, if we could just kind of start, introduce to our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got associated with AIM.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be here. And so how I got introduced to AIM is kind of a God story of just, I was a deputy sheriff out in Sacramento County for about 10 and a half years. And through that time, I was involved in numerous shootings. And then back in 2019 was an active shooter that I got engaged with. And through all of that, while I was on leave, I was able to get introduced to a gentleman who worked for AIM. Never before had any introduction to them, heard of them, about anything that was going on with them. And he said, hey, why don't you come work for us? It would be a great fit, great opportunity. We really like who you are. And we have our own SWAT team. So of course that catches my ear. Their name is AIM and they have their own SWAT team. I'm coming from law enforcement. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And so they told them, they were like, hey, we rescue girls out of sex trafficking in Cambodia and potentially going into Belize. And I was like, that's phenomenal. Like, that is huge. So that was my introduction. And I left law enforcement after 10 years in December of 2019 and started with AIM in January of 2020. And let me tell you, that is a heck of a year to decide that you're going to transition careers. So yeah, that was my introduction to AIM.
Awesome, man. So what role are you kind of filling now for AIM?
Yeah, so my title is Partner Engagement Officer. And what that is I really work with businesses, with individuals, with churches, organizations on how we interact together and how we're able to kind of make a lasting relationship. Because one thing that's amazing about AIM is that it's not a, hey, this is what we're looking to do. We are a nonprofit. We're here for money and we're out. Like, that is not us at all. We are all about relationships. We're about long term. We're about the human and the heart behind what's going on, rather than just, hey, what's the cool business? What's the quick money? Let's go from here. Because really, who we're helping is these girls that have gone through so much over in Cambodia, that is the true reward for what we're working towards. And we're just the mediator. We're here to share, hey, this is what's going on. Here's how you can be a part of it, and how we can kind of all work together and what that looks like. Because it all looks different when you're dealing with an individual based or a individual and then a business and then a church. So there's a little bit of differences there, but that's kind of my key role of being able to kind of relay all that, share passion, share our stories, talk to large groups, talk to churches, businesses, all that type of stuff. So it's a lot, but I love it.
Go.
I'll jump in here. Yeah, you just stand there and look good. Eric, let's start, right? Kind of what I'm hearing is really that there's a pretty big issue with child and sex trafficking that's happening kind of over in Cambodia. And I think you said another one, but I missed it.
Belize. You know, it's happening everywhere, Cameron.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's where I was going, is that you guys are kind of addressing the issue here, and then you guys have the solution through AIM. So let's start with maybe the problem. What is kind of child and sex trafficking? What does that look like over in Cambodia for some of the women that you're rescuing?
Yeah, so it kind of comes culturally. So years ago, in about 1965 to 1969, 1970-ish, there was a civil war that took place over there. But then there was also the Khmer Rouge that came in, and it was called the Killing Fields. So everybody's heard about the Holocaust and the big genocide that went on there. But the genocide that went on in Cambodia killed, after all the years combined, about 2.5 million people altogether. The Khmer Rouge came in. They wanted to be the top agricultural population for the world. So what did they do? They killed off everybody that was educated, that looked educated, that could basically take them over, that could overthink them, that could outpower them. Kids were killing their parents. I mean, it was a complete atrocity of what happened. And they still have, I want to say it's, I even hate to use the word museum, but there's a museum in Cambodia where 200 skulls are on display to kind of put in the realistic version of, hey, this is something that really happened. And that culture's still reeling from that. Like, it still involves some way with the effects that had gone on. Because really, it wasn't that long ago, if we think about it in the big picture, is it had just recently happened. And so when you deal with that and you completely wipe out a generation, and now there's poverty and there's hunger and there's no work and the education is completely lacking that there's none of, you have a culture that's just looking for something and that's hungry. And what's the quickest way to fulfill that? When you're hungry, are you going to sell your kid off for money and fulfill that hunger need, or are you going to starve and potentially die? And so with that culture, that's kind of how it became socially acceptable in there. And we're rescuing girls all the way from 4 years old to 35 years old. I mean, the age range is so broad, but yet it's so young. And we have videos of Americans going over asking, what's the youngest girl I can get? And it makes you sick to your stomach. And it is going on. And what's going on there is it's an in your face everyday aspect of what's going on in that culture. Luckily with AIM, over the past 15 years, we've really dove into that culture and tried to wipe that out. Is it still happening? Will it always still happen? Yes. But to the levels that it was 15 years ago, no. But then you can take that back into the States, and it's absolutely going on within the States as well. there's a difference because over there, again, like I was saying, it's more in your face, it's more on the streets, it's more being sold. And in the States, it's more kind of, we're more privileged here, so it goes on a lot behind closed doors. So we have the aspect of, if I don't see it, it's not happening. And with the neighborhoods that are completely privileged and that they're nicer, the restaurants, the buildings, the hotels, they have places to hide it. But it is absolutely going on in our own backyard with our own kids, and it's just on a grander scale over there, if that makes sense.
So in the United States, are people selling their kids or are they being taken?
There's a mixture of both. So a lot of people think that it comes down to kidnapping, that it's that movie with Liam Neeson that they're going to take you and off you go to this sex workshop where you're sold to the elites. And that's a myth that surrounds a lot of trafficking, because a lot of it comes down to coercion. A lot of it is this boyfriend that you meet that you think is the greatest guy ever, that you start off for the first couple of months really loving and liking each other. But then 4 months into it, he's like, look, this is what you're going to do for me because we need the money. You're going to go work. I bought you this dress. You're going to go do this for us. And if you don't, I'm going to kill your family, or I'm going to come after you, or you're not going to be able to leave. And at first you have the blinders on because you think that this is normal. And so the coercion aspect of trafficking is huge. When it comes down to kidnapping, it's maybe 1 to 3% of how things actually happen. A lot of it is, it's wrapped up in this nice, pretty package that makes you think that it's something else. And then lo and behold, months later, they're already entrenched in it because they're 4 months down the line. They think that it's a great relationship. And now they're having to do this because, again, now you have fear, and now you have the coercion, and now you have other family members at stake. So it's a lot, but that's the main course of action, is a lot of coercion.
So what does AIM do? Like, how do you guys help these girls?
Yeah, so ours is a model that is truly phenomenal, because when I first heard about it, and us being an organization that has a SWAT team, that got my eye right off the bat. Like, that's amazing. We go down, we kick down the doors, and that came from not being able to rescue a girl for 22 days because, again, with corruption in third world countries, a lot of stuff was tipped off and these girls were moved. So we said, we're going to create our own. And
So
that, for me,
sorry to cut you off, Eric. How did AIM
Yeah.
get a footprint in Cambodia? Did it start in the U.S. and then kind of adapt over there, or how did that begin?
Yeah, so our founders, Don and Bridget Brewster, were originally pastors over here in California, in Roseville, where we're at. And they had gone over on a mission trip just to kind of scout out the country. They had known that it was impoverished. They kind of knew the history of it, and then just kind of wanted to scout it out for potential mission trips down the road. And they really felt, hey, let's put this out to the church. Let's see if we can get some missionaries to go over and support. And nobody bit. Nobody was saying, hey, I want to go. This is what I want to do. And so they said, you know what? This is our calling. Like, this is where we need to be. So they sold everything, took off in a plane, landed in Cambodia, and said, we're here to help. We're here to start this up.
Wow.
And so they are the ones that basically launched us from the ground up. And they're literally the most amazing people you will ever meet. Like, hands down, they're the coolest people that you'll ever talk to. So yeah, that's how it kind of started. And it's blossomed into so much, kind of like you were saying. It's like, what do we do? And like the SWAT version was like, that's the shining star. You know, that's what gets everybody. Everybody loves it. You go down, kick down doors, rescue these girls. That sounds great. But AIM has this holistic model of how we approach it, because we can kick down the door and save these girls, but that's not where the rescuing and restoring happens. So we have a restoration center where all the survivors come back to. We have house moms, we have social workers. We're able to love on them and breathe on them and really show the love of God to them, because we can have the best things in place, but without that hope, they can't have that restoration, which is truly amazing. So we have the restoration centers. And then when we go from the restoration centers, we're like, okay, these girls are aging out. What can we do to keep them out of human trafficking? Because it's so predominant in this country. If they age out, they're going to go right back into it. So we created an employment center. And in that employment center is where we create t-shirts and we create bracelets and we have kimonos and hairbands. And at that employment center, we pay our girls 400% higher wages than anywhere in Cambodia. They have healthcare.
Wow.
They
Awesome.
have daycare. They have, I mean, it is set up for them to be so lucrative in what they're doing, not just, again, financially, but again, career-wise and in life, setting them up on the path that they need to go. They have different school. We have our own school. We have different schooling and Bible studies that they can do at our employment center. And again, kind of going back to the lack of education in Cambodia, we built our own school at AIM. So now we have kids from the community, but also young children that are survivors that we're bringing in as well. We're educating them and giving them an education that they never would have gotten in that country. And so that being able to kind of touch on those parts was phenomenal, because it's this holistic pattern of, hey, we know that we can help them, but there's this much bigger and broader way that we can completely restore them. Because whether it takes 6 months or it takes 16 years, we're in it for the long game, which is truly cool.
Man, I love the holistic approach. How big, what kind of a impression do you guys have? How many women are at these facilities at the restoration, and then also the kind of employment facility? How many women are working going through here?
Yeah, so all in all, we have the numbers. We can hold about 1,000 girls at our restoration centers, and those are all survivors that we're working with. And we really try to reintegrate these girls into a loving and caring home if we can. We're not going to replace them back into the home that they came from, to which they were sold or they were coerced out of. It's always going to go back into a loving family member or friends that we're able to kind of vet through our social workers. But if that can't happen, then we have the restoration homes. And then we're also able to employ these girls at the restoration or our employment center. And overall, we have about 450 employees that work in Cambodia with American staff, and then also Cambodian staff as well. Because when we're there, we don't want to be the organization that comes in and we're the Americans that take over, that say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to be working in this role. This is how it's going to be for years on end. We want to go in there and we really want to empower them and say, hey, these are the roles that you guys are going to move into. And we'd really love to see the transition for you guys to be the managers and take over and directors, and to really start empowering this country to be able to be sustainable on their own. So it's truly amazing what's going on.
What I really like is that it was, for one, just like you mentioned, it's one thing to rescue them or take them out of that environment, but unless they learn some skills, I mean, they may very well end up going back. So I like how you're providing unemployment. And I would imagine even if they were to move on, I'm not, well, my questions will be kind of graduation or what happens when they leave, but yeah, they're learning skills, right? That they probably didn't learn, that I would imagine that they could take and, make them more valuable when they want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the amazing part, is through our 18 years, coming up to 18 years, we've had a 99% success rate at girls never going back into human trafficking. We've had one girl that entire time that did walk away, that went back, but she came back. So that 1% is accountable for that one girl that left, decided to say, hey, I'm going to go back. This is what I'm going to do. Again, there was more to that story, but she came back. And so we have a 99% success rate, which blows everything out of the water of what statistics should be for girls being reintegrated after they've been rescued and restored. And a lot of our girls have come back to be, what's a really cool story is one of our girls that was restored and that was rescued, went through the programs, healing was amazing. She's now a social worker that works directly with our SWAT team. So when they kick down the doors and they go into these brothels and they save these young girls, she's right there. The restoration part happens right there. And she can say, I've been in your shoes. I've been with you. I know exactly what you're going through. And she can walk them out. Like, the healing begins the second they come through, because she's walked in those shoes and she's had such an amazing restoration process that she's now being used to help other girls. So it's just phenomenal stories that come about like that. And also more have come to be shop owners and business owners and realtors and more social workers. And I mean, it's phenomenal, the stories that come out of here. We could talk for hours on everything that goes on, but it truly is. And like you said, being able to set them up for success to where they can go in the future, rather than just, hey, what's the quick fix and how can we help you right now? And then kind of best of luck to you. We're in it for the long game. And a lot of these girls become friends and mentors down the road just to each other. So it's truly a great program.
Well, I tell you what I like. I mean, when we're helping people, there's always that, do we give them a handout or do we give them a hand up?
Right.
And oftentimes they need both, right? Not just a handout, but they need a hand up. And so I like that you guys are doing both. I think one question I got that keeps coming up, I would think their police department would be like, what are these guys doing
I was gonna
playing cops and busting down doors? Like in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
there's laws and, to protect that. Like, how do you guys have that presence there?
I was gonna ask, is the SWAT team private or is that in conjunction with like local government?
So it's kind of both. When we originally started this, we were working with the Cambodian government, and it was a partnership that we were seeing through. But again, like I had said, there was some corruption that had gone on to where we weren't able to do these rescues. And we are a private organization over there in Cambodia. So when we originally started the SWAT team, there was some resistance to it because now we're going into this country and not utilizing their law enforcement, their justification side of it, their criminal aspect of it. And so there was some pushback. But when they started to see our way of doing things, that we were very victim centered, that we were in there for the rescue, that we still wanted to utilize them, but we wanted to ensure that it was done right, that it was done properly, that channels weren't being executed to where girls could be moved. The relationship went from, hey, you shouldn't be here, to now we are in such good relationships with the Cambodian government and their law enforcement that they're calling us and utilizing our own SWAT team for their missions that they're having to do as well. And other organizations that are within the country are now utilizing our SWAT team so that we can carry out raids with them and put them into those girls into restoration as well. So it went from a very kind of, like you said, like, why are you creating this, and kind of what it would appear to maybe be stepping on toes, to you guys are doing this right, because it's not just a SWAT team. We have a full legal and prosecution team as well that sees it through. So we have all of the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, and the whole process is 100% thorough. And the prosecution for the criminals on the backside of it is 100% complete too, with nothing lacking.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is this illegal in Cambodia? And are they criminally charged?
They are. And it's, when it comes down to legality and illegal, it's one of those, again, it's not like the US. So you kind of have to get outside of US thinking of, is it illegal? Yes. Is it prosecuted and accepted? Prosecuted, no. Accepted, yes, because they understand that way of life and how they're able to do that so they can live. And it's one of those things that's looked at and it's like, it would be kind of like a candy bar theft in the US. Is it still a crime? Yes. Are they going to prosecute on it? No. But when we come in and we have our own legal system and we have our own lawyers and we have our own SWAT team, and we're able to say, hey, we're going to carry this through, and this isn't right. This is a moral and ethical and lawful injustice that you are doing to these girls, and we are here to combat that. And once they saw that, that blew them out of the water, and they saw how well it was done and how specific it was done, but how thoughtful and victim oriented it was too, that, I mean, you can't argue with it.
I've heard about child and sex trafficking over the years and just never had an opportunity to get involved or support in any way. Mm-hmm. Until I heard somebody, a representative from AIM, come and speak at our church, and I heard it and I'm like, man, that's awesome. Something that we could get behind, right? Being a small business. And so, Eric, if you could maybe switch gears and talk about some of the opportunities that maybe somebody has in the US here of either buying or supporting AIM through the shirts and or other stuff that you guys maybe have, your other offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, a great entry point to be able to help and get a foothold into how can we help and stop human trafficking is t-shirts. And our girls make these shirts. I'm wearing one, you're wearing one. They make them from scratch. So the fabric comes in, they cut them, they sew them, they print them all on their own. And what's a really cool part is a name of the girl who makes the shirt comes on every single shirt. So it's truly personal, and it lets you know this shirt was made by a survivor of human trafficking. And like, how cool is that? And for me, I was your typical dude. I'd go to Bass Pro Shop or somewhere and just buy the Under Armour shirt and never give two thoughts about it. But then when I started seeing this and working in AIM, I'm like, where are my shirts coming from? Like, who can I help? Because this helps rescue a girl from human trafficking. And that was phenomenal. I'll buy shirts all day long. And for me, like I've told you guys, like, I'm a total shirt snob. Like, outside of even AIM, like if my neck crinkles or it misses size or anything like that, or I can't work out in it or anything like that, I wear it one time and it's trash. And this is hands down my favorite shirt. And that's literally the talk of everybody when I have those conversations with them, is like, it's my favorite shirt to wear because of the comfort and sizing. So that's a super easy way to get involved, especially with your businesses. And when working with businesses, that's a great way to relay to your employees, to the people on the outside that you're potentially even selling these shirts to, that, hey, there's a aspect to this that's greater than us, that we are able to thoroughly think about where our money's going, how we're supporting other organizations, and in the return for it, we get an amazing product and we get to send girls out of human trafficking that would be wrapped up in it. So that's a phenomenal way to start. And that kind of ties into being involved with AIM. And again, with being a nonprofit, donations are great, but we really want to work with your organization to be able to say, how can we come behind your organization and let you have the information to relay to your employees of what human trafficking is. Like, let's have those conversations so that we can say, hey, this is what it is, this is how we can fight it, and how cool would it be to get businesses or people that are out there in a group together and go to Cambodia and help serve. Like, what a better way to relay that and to actually be boots on the ground than to get people over there. So there's so many ways to serve and to get connected, and the t-shirts are a phenomenal way to like jump right into that, which is awesome.
And Eric, you actually sent this to us. This is I've got a bracelet here, and the bracelet I think is stamped with, or it actually was made by a young girl named Smay. And on here with part of the card, it says that she was rescued at 9 years old. So, I mean,
let's just take a second. Like 9 years old, man. Like how old's your youngest?
11, 9, and 7 are my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you think of the gravity of the situation, like it hits you hard and it hits you in the gut. And those bracelets are phenomenal, and it's stamped with "For Her Freedom." And then on every bracelet on the inside, it will have her name and then the date she was rescued, which is pretty awesome too. So you always see that. And like I said before, like it is such a heavy subject and it's such a heavy calling of human trafficking. But there's so much hope in it on the outside of what we're doing. Like, to hear all these stories that I could share about, to hear about all the restoration, to hear about all the programs that are going on, like there's so much hope that we're able to bring to this heavy topic that it just gets you fired up. That it's like, how can I get involved? How can I help? How can I rescue some girls? Like, let's hit the ground running and just totally kick this off. So as much as it is heavy, there's so much hope and healing in it as well.
So Eric, and speaking of kind of how somebody can get involved, is what's a great way for somebody to contact you if they're listening and they're like, hey, either I want to get involved or I know somebody that I want to introduce Eric to, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's aimfree.org, and all the information is on there. My email will be on there, or you can email me at eric.meier, M-E-I-E-R, @aimfree.org as well. And I'm always connected and always moving and always on the go. So you're going to get a response pretty quick. And again, it kind of goes back to the whole relational aspect. Like, we love people reaching out and contacting us, and we take every relationship for face value, to dig in, to really get behind people and what they're doing and how they want to help, because everybody and every organization is unique. So we love that. So if you want to reach out to me on the website or email, I'm always available.
Eric, are they able to buy like a shirt? Or because like we brought like a pack or like 100 shirts, or but can they order individual shirts?
Yeah, so if you go to aimcustom.org, there's a bunch of individual shirts on there as well. And on there, we kind of have the whole shop on there. So it's going to have t-shirts, it's going to have kimonos, it'll have long sleeve shirts, it'll have bracelets, it'll have kind of everything that we have to offer. And we'll be able to ship that out directly to you, and you could buy one at a time.
And if anybody's listening, they're like, man, I like this idea, but I just don't know what I would do. That's really where I was when we reached out to Eric. Yeah. I was like, hey, man, we want to support you guys in some way. We have no idea what we would actually do with it for a shirt. And man, I'll tell you, you were great. You know, you walked us through from the beginning all the way to the end on recommending what type of shirt, the kind of blends, but then also the graphics and the logo and kind of the design that comes along with it. And so, man, it was great, right? You guys were awesome as far as kind of walking somebody through it that really didn't have a clue what was going on. So thank you, Eric.
That's awesome. Absolutely.
Well, Eric,
I appreciate it.
I also appreciate your work. I mean, a lot of people, you had a career in law enforcement, a nice pension, you know, but you gave that up to work for this nonprofit and help people. So we appreciate your service, Eric.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's one thing that I've told so many people, is that, like, for me, the scariest thing that I could ever do is not running into gunfire or being in a shootout or wrestling some crazy guy. it was literally transferring from a career from law enforcement into a ministry career that I wasn't 100%. I didn't know. I didn't have any back end, I didn't have any training, schooling, anything. And making that transition was the scariest thing. But I completely trusted and knew and had faith in what they were doing. And it's been the best thing ever since. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Eric. We appreciate AIM and everything that you've done for us since we kind of reached out to you. And so we're more than happy to kind of promote you and put you out there in front of some people, and hopefully just continue to find some additional resources for you guys.
Absolutely. I love it. It's very much appreciated. And any more people we can get behind this, the better, because truly everybody that benefits from it is not me. I'm just that middleman being able to tell the story. It's going to be all of these girls that we're able to keep out of trafficking and rescue and keep restoring. So they are the true winners of what's going on here.
Awesome, man. I couldn't agree more. And Eric, we're going to make sure that we share your contact information in the show notes afterwards. That way somebody can reach out to you. If anybody's got questions, feel free to reach out to Eric or us, and we're happy to kind of share our experience.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Go make a fantastic day.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. Also, check out our website, infinitewealthconsultants.com, to find our podcast along with other additional resources.